Hi, this is Courageous Light, the flower hunter, tuning in for my latest update on communicating with the flower spirits. Today is Valentine's Day, 2019, and I started my journey in the golden hour. You can see it is now fully dusk. I've got the beautiful blue sky, silhouetted branches in the background. I am sitting against the river. I don't know, you can't see it, maybe you can hear it. But let me tell you about my journey today. So I saw everybody's posts wishing people happy Valentine's Day, and I thought, gosh, I wonder if there's a flower out there that wants to share some love with us on Valentine's Day. So I decided to go on a bike ride at dusk. Sunset is personally my favorite time of day to connect with the other realms. I'm going to give you some primers on energetics today. Sunrise and sunset are some of the most powerful times of the day to meditate and connect with the other realm. So if you're ever wondering, like, what's the best time to meditate with a flower and learn about its medicine, learn about its essence, try one of those times. And of course, my tip is also take some plant helpers. Today I used some CBD oil and I set my intentions. I got on my bike, I started pedaling, and I said, guide me to the flower for the highest good for my community. And in my mind, it appeared to me, and I saw it as like a climbing vine plant. But I stayed open. I stayed open to whatever was going to present itself. And so, of course, like 2 minutes into my journey, I see this yellow flowering plant. It's a leather leaf something. I'm sorry, I'm going to look it up and tell you what it is. I'll probably post another video with that plant after this. But something told me, keep going. That's not it, because that was actually a domesticated plant. And really my goal today was to find a wild plant. The first two videos I shared with you this year were ornamental, human manicured plants, and I really wanted to find something wild and really get a taste of wild medicine, because there's just something so powerful about that. So I passed the first flower, which was okay. It was like near this construction site. It just didn't feel right. And that's my first tip for you today, is always trust your intuition. So if something says, keep going, move on, it's okay, trust that. And so I just kept saying, guide me to the right flower for the highest good for my community for this day, for whatever message needs to come through. And I'm in this beautiful recreation area, and I saw this little path to the left, and I got that hit that said, hey, turn left, check this out. And I knew it was kind of like a boggy area with a lot of water, standing water, and so I thought, oh cool, maybe I'll find something unusual. And tiny. I got this picture in my head that, okay, it's going to be something tiny. And so I get to this path and I see the color, it says stop, and so I say, okay, here it is, I stop. There is a little smattering of about 5 of these tiny little buttercup looking yellow flowers, and it was in standing water, and it was mixed in with a bunch of other forbs, which are basically like small weedy plants, less than like 6 inches high. And I thought, okay, this is cool. Let me see if I can isolate this flower from the other plants, right? And all you have to do is intention. And so I put my hands around it, just kind of like this, like you were going to cup some water, like you were going to, feel your aura, smooth your hair. And so I, quieted my mind, I grounded myself, and I said, what is your medicine all about? Show me what it is. And I kind of instantly started feeling these sharp little like pings in my hand. It was a little unpleasant, but I tried to stay with it for 30 seconds, and I was like, okay, what is this about? This is interesting medicine. What is this message? And I kept observing the physical surroundings. Always super important anytime you are harvesting wild plants or trying to identify a plant you didn't know. That was the other thing I wanted to do today. The 2 videos I showed you so far, the Daphne, the Camellia, I was already familiar with these plants. I knew a lot about these plants, and so I already kind of had an academic relationship with them. I knew their names. I was hoping to find a plant that I didn't know the name, And so I could just, you know, really come from this pure newborn perspective of just discovery. And so I was excited by this discovery. I sat there and, you know, even before, this was interesting, actually. This was super interesting. And if you're into omens and signs, my astrologer always talks about animal imagery. So, I hope you're watching. This is for you. I saw a deer. It was a white-tailed deer. It looked youth, not full grown, didn't have any horns. And I noticed it was actually limping. It had a hurt back leg, which is super unusual. And it was just like paused in the middle of the trail. I was like 10 feet away from it. There were 2 other walkers approaching it from the other direction. And it was not moving very fast. It was obviously hurt. It was trying to cross the path. I could hear the leaves rustling. It had a friend already hidden in the brush, and it was trying to get there, and I guess it was just tired, and it was like having trouble. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, it really made me pause. Because anytime you interact with a wild animal, I believe that is a sign, that is an omen, and you should pay attention to not only what you see with your eyes, but what you feel in your heart. And so I just all of a sudden had a lot of like empathy for this guy. And I was like, gosh, you know, get to your friend, get out of the open, like get away from these humans. What are you doing? And so I just kind of watched it for a while, limp across the trail. And it even got confused. Like it lost its trail. It didn't know how to get into the thick brush. And it eventually kind of jumped in and joined its friend there. And then I returned back to the flower. And I was observing the water that it was standing in, and I could see that rainbow sheen of chemicals and pollution. And then it hit me. I was like, this flower is toxic. That's what it's telling me. Like, the energy I felt in my hand was like, no. And, but I'm stubborn. I got a lot of Taurus in me. I'm stubborn. And so I kept sitting with it. I mean, this did not go on for longer than like 2 minutes, but I just had to be sure. And so I'm sitting with it, and then I feel all of a sudden my stomach starts to turn. Like I was getting like physically ill sensations, and then I was like, Allison, this flower is not medicine. Like, stop. And so I just stood up, kind of shook it off, regrounded myself, hopped on my bike, and moved on. And I was kind of like, you know, I had to let it settle for a minute. And I pedal, I move on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to find that viney plant. This was not the one. My intuition was right. Keep on, look for this viney plant. And you know what? I didn't find it. And then it got too dark to really see anything. I saw some dried flowers. I saw some seed pods. I was even literally hunting for some of the flowering vines I knew might be blooming at this time in this area, and I really could not find them. And so I decided to just sit down and do this video before I went home to capture it all. And unfortunately, I did not find a flower lover this Valentine's Day. What I found was a toxic lover. And I think that's an even more powerful lesson, is being able to recognize, you know, even though we want to pursue a relationship or we have an intention that we're hoping to achieve, like, you gotta pay attention to when it says stop, you know. And I wrestle with that all the time of like, is this a sign that I should change directions, or is this a sign that I should try harder? And I feel like the deer reinforced that. I mean, it could not have been more obvious. There was the physical pollution, the energetic pain. It was not like a sharp pain, but I'm just going to call it that. It was dis-ease, the energetic dis-ease, and the wounded animal. I mean, that's like 3 things. Like that basically solidifies it, right? That to pay attention. And, you know, really, it didn't connect to anything broader in my life. There's no relationships I need to let go. My relationships are pretty minimal because I have integrated that lesson. And I think, obviously, someone in this community needs to hear that lesson. And that was the flower for the highest good of this community. And sometimes truth is bittersweet like that. right? That we need to recognize that sometimes the right path is to let it go. And so I let go of that flower tonight. I'm going to say a blessing to the deer that it may fulfill what it needs for its highest good. And I want to shout out my astrologer Corey for encouraging me to always stay open to those omens. And to all of you, you know, let this be a lesson as you go out and you experiment meeting wild plant medicine, to take note that you're not toxifying your body, right? I'm not an herbalist. I'm not going to go over the basic steps of harvesting wild plants. There's tons of better qualified people doing that out there. But